Thank you, Ruben, for the water. Well, welcome, everybody. My name is Jack McGee. My wife and I are the shepherds here in the church. Our son and daughter-in-law lead the church, but they're in L.A. I think I shared that. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the lesson this morning. Can you hear me okay? I feel like how about now? Can you hear me okay now? I feel like I'm like leaning over. So the title of my lesson today is Fearful or Fearless? What do you want to be? So what is fear? It's one of the 5 emotions that I talk about a lot. If you've ever been in a counseling time with me or any kind of a one-on-one and it gets a little smoky, I usually ask you how you're feeling. And the 5 feelings that I use are one-word answers. Are you sad? Are you mad? Are you glad? Are you embarrassed? Or are you afraid? And I learned it a long time ago from a guy, and it just really helps you identify what you're feeling. Because you can say all these elaborate words, but really, you're either mad at me or you're embarrassed or, maybe you're glad. It just depends. Sometimes they're glad. But we use those words to describe how we feel, basically. Our emotions dictate a lot of what we do and who we are. If you're not aware of that, come and see me afterwards and I'll help you out. Turn over to Genesis chapter 6. Genesis chapter 6. Let's start in the beginning here. Excuse me. Genesis 6, verse 6 said, the Lord was grieved that he had made man on the earth, and his heart was filled with pain. So God has emotion. He has a heart. It says his heart was filled with pain. Jesus had emotions. He was filled with compassion. He talks about it a lot. The Holy Spirit has emotions. It says, do not grieve the Holy Spirit. Angels have emotions. Job 38:7. All the angels shouted for joy. So our emotions are pretty much fill up our lives. But I think sometimes we either give into them or we deny that we have them. Depends on what you're going through. And they can lead us into doing some bad things, actually. Our emotions can lead us into sinful things if we're not careful. I'm an emotional guy, just so you know. If most of you guys know me. I have kind of a heat up. I can really be prone to anger. Now, I've had to die to that over the years, many, 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 many times. And I've changed a lot. You don't see me. What I was 40 years ago, you wouldn't want to see it. It's pretty ugly. When our kids were little, we used to have these sessions where we'd sit in a circle, all 5 of us, the 3 kids and Gene and I, and we'd just share about whoever's birthday was, what that person meant to us. I was always a blubbering, crying, just, there was some fears in me and I'm an emotional guy. Emotions can lead us into doing bad things, into sinful things. Unbridled anger, like I used to have, God knows we're going to get angry. It doesn't say that sin or anger is a sin. It's what you do with it. If you read in the book of Ephesians, it says, don't let the sun go down while you're angry. And be in sin. And so if you allow yourself to go to bed without being some kind of resolution with whoever you're angry at, I think you can always do what you need to do and get resolution. But if you continue to let that happen day after day and let the sun go down while you're angry day after day, what it leads to is a bitter heart. It leads to some real resentment and some bitterness that is very hurtful to your heart because you let it stay there. It's our responsibility to not do that. It's really only up to you. Whenever Gene and I have a disagreement, I don't want to walk around the house like that. I want to nip it right away. There's been a few times I actually walked away from it and had to get my head together. But I come right back and say, we need to talk. Because I don't want to walk around like that. Because you pull your heart away and you get like, oh. And we can do it with one another in the fellowship here. And if you walk in the door some Sunday and you see somebody you got an attitude with and you don't want to talk to them, you need to talk to them. You need to go straight to that person and talk about it because you have a bitterness. It's starting to build. And you can justify it. You can roll with that if that's how you want to roll, but it'll eat you alive. It'll eat you up. So there's a couple things. I'm really dry here, cigar. Excuse me. It's fear that pleases God. In Proverbs 1, verse 7, it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. But fools despise wisdom and discipline. We're a fool if we don't really fear God. And I didn't fear God. When I was a young man, nah. I wanted proof. I wanted to see it. And I didn't believe it. Just the way, I wasn't raised going to church. I was raised to be whatever I wanted to be, pretty much. And I didn't fear God. I kind of mocked God because in the 60s, there was a movie and a stage play called Jesus Christ Superstar. You ever hear of it? And the adage was, hey, walk across my swimming pool. I want to see it. So I didn't have any faith at all. I just wanted proof. I wanted visual, tangible, something I could show me. But I didn't have that fear that, like Jeannie had a healthy fear of God when she was young. I think for whatever reason, God allows us to be who we are. And I didn't have it. But I did have fears. And so I would medicate my fears with drugs, alcohol, impure living. It was a very reckless lifestyle. I wasn't afraid to die. I didn't think about it. I did crazy, reckless things. I think I shared it a couple weeks ago, swimming, scuba diving without any lessons, jumping off of high bridges in Fort Lauderdale, just in dark water. I didn't know what was in the water. I was 40, 50 feet up. Hey, some people told me I had a self-destructive mindset. I kind of liked it. I was kind of fearless, Didn't feel self-destructive at the time when I was young. I was like, give it to me now. I wanted to bring it on. But it was an unhealthy fear. I didn't really understand fearing God. As parents, we decide, we discipline our children, to fear God, to fear us in the healthy sense. Like you see your 2-year-old running to the street. They don't have the fear. Children don't have a lot of fear. They're just really, but you need to teach them to fear the wooden spoon, so that you can discipline them and help them not just run in the street. Does that make sense? It's more just you got to train it into them. And God teaches us to fear him. Turn over to Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy 31. Deuteronomy 31, verse 9. So Moses wrote down this law and gave it to the priests, the sons of Levi, who carried the ark of the covenant of the Lord, and to all the elders of Israel. Then Moses commanded them, at the end of every 7 years in the year for canceling debts during the Feast of the Tabernacles, when all of Israel comes to appear before the Lord your God, at the place he will choose, you shall read this law before them in this hearing. Assemble the people, men, women, and children, and the aliens living in your towns, so they can listen and learn to fear the Lord your God and follow all the ways of his law. It's something that God teaches us through his word to be fearful of him. That's a healthy fear. If we're not, we're fools. In hindsight, I wish I had learned this when I was younger, when I was doing all those crazy, reckless things. But I didn't. In Philippians 2:12, it says, work out your salvation with fear and trembling. Do you fear God in a healthy way? Not in an unhealthy way, but in just like, take you like that anytime, any day, any hour. But I don't think any of us really live in that realm. There's too much going on, especially we're so busy in America with You fill in the blank. Cars, homes, gadgets, PlayStation, distractions. There's always the distractions. Turn over to Luke 12. That's in the New Testament, Luke 12. Luke 12, verse 4. I tell you, my friends, do not be afraid of those who kill the body and after that can do no more. But I will show you whom you should fear. Fear him who, after killing the body, has power to throw you into hell. Yes, I tell you, fear him. You think about hell? I don't think any of us just want to sit around and think about it. Or do you believe in it? You really believe that there is a heaven and a hell? We need to fear God, but there's a fear that pleases Satan. Satan loves it when, we do certain things. When I stopped medicating my fears with all those drugs and alcohol and all that stuff, and tried to live like a Christian, like a disciple, I had to face my fears. Because when you medicate them away, or if you make money and you not learn how to deal with your emotions, or go to school for, lifetime student, you just go to school because that's what you love, or you fill that up with hobbies or PlayStation or whatever it is. You're really not learning how to deal in a lot of ways. You distract, you deflect, it's like, just hit a nerve back there with somebody. And we all do it. We all we don't want to deal with your spouse, your children, your boss, whatever it is. And so you just fill it up with anything to distract you. Food, pleasure, comfort. I mean, we're a bunch of comfortable Americans in here, are we not? Maybe go to Haiti or Cuba or Africa, and then get in touch with how much we have. We're so sheltered and protected, and we really master those things so that we don't have to feel. Or you just deny those feelings and you build the bitterness. Turn over to back to Exodus chapter 4. Satan loves to keep us here. You fill it up with whatever you want. He doesn't care. He keep you from doing anything productive. In Exodus chapter 4, I relate to this a lot. Exodus 4, verse 10. Moses said to the Lord, "O Lord, I've never been eloquent, neither in the past nor since you have me spoken to your servant. Since you've spoken to your servant, I am slow of speech and tongue." The Lord said to him, "Who gave man his mouth? Who makes him deaf or mute? Who gives him sight or makes him blind? Is it not I, the Lord? Now go, I will help you speak, and I will teach you what to say." But Moses said, "Please, God, just send somebody else, will you? I don't really want to do this." I know Angel and I have a lot in common in this. Like, you get somebody else. Jared asked me to preach last week. I said, "Could you have a young gun service or something?" "No, Dad, I want you to do it." I said, "Okay, amen." I've had to learn how to do this. For 40 years, I've been practicing. So this is the best as it gets, 40 years of practice. But why? Because I didn't want to look bad. I'd be embarrassed. I was afraid I would be embarrassed. And then I'd be mad because you asked me. Thomas Edison's teachers, they said he was too stupid to learn. Everybody know who Thomas Edison? Yeah. Anybody doesn't? Okay, amen. They told him he was too stupid to learn. His first two jobs he failed because he was unproductive. He failed as an inventor 12,386 times. That's a lot of times to try. Yeah, I haven't tried preaching that many times, but it takes a lot of effort, a lot of attempts to do something, to master something. But if you don't try, Satan you're done. He doesn't have to do anything with you. If you give in to your fears, he's happy. Because you're not going to do anything that goes against him. It leads to cowardliness, fear of failure, That's usually what drives it, you know. But the root of fear of failure is pride. You're prideful, and you don't want to admit who you are. How about fear of being overlooked? One guy walked by me this morning, and I acknowledged everybody but him. And I thought he could be prone to that because I didn't overlook him. I just didn't acknowledge him. You ever get shunned by somebody, or they don't say hello to you in the right way, or good morning, Jeannie, how are you today? You know, and he's like, he looked at me wrong. I don't like the way he looked at me. She wasn't smiling at me. She must have an attitude with me. Any of you ever feel like that? You ever think about what the other person's going through? When you feel those things, you ever think about what the other person might be going through? Or are you just navel gazing? You just looking at you. Well, they didn't acknowledge me. I didn't hear my name mentioned, and I did all the work. In Luke 22, you don't have to turn to this. A dispute arose among the disciples about who is going to be the greatest. Is that you? Do you look at the person next to you or think about it at Bible talk or on midweek? It's like, oh, but they got the recognition, and you didn't. God allows things like that to happen to test you. That's right. To see what you're made of. Come on. We do and say inappropriate things to get attention when it's all about us. You're selfish, insecure, bragging, lying about your accomplishments. Yeah, I know none of you are liars. Every man's a liar. Hopefully you repented this morning. We can be very critical, especially of others. Why do we do that? Why do you think we do that? We do it so we can feel better about ourselves. Yeah. If you put somebody down or if you're critical about somebody and what they've done, you're really trying to elevate yourself into feeling better about you. None of you do that, all right? No, I'm sure not. But the root of that is actually just, again, selfishness and really a lack of trust and faith in God. How about fear of being exposed? Ooh, baby. Turn over to John 3. John 3. No hammer today. This is where Satan wants you to be. John 3. Everybody got it? Verse 20. Everyone who does evil hates the light and will not come into the light for fear that his deeds will be exposed. But whoever lives by the truth comes into the light so that it may be seen plainly that what he has done has been done through God. If you're afraid to be seen, this is where he wants you. It leads to duplicity, outright lying. It leads you to being secretive. And then you don't remember what you're doing. You're so busy covering things up that you're just like, oh, what did I tell that person? So you're secretive. It gets weird. It leads to weird behavior. In Proverbs 10:19, it said, where words are many, sin is not absent. So when I get around somebody just constantly talking, I go, what's going on? What's really going on in that guy or that woman? I'm not talking about any of you. I'm just talking in general. When words are many, sin is not absent. In 1 John 1:6, it says, if we claim we have a relationship with God, yet walk in darkness, we lie. Because it's impossible to have a relationship with God and live that way. It prevents you to be close to one another in the fellowship. If you got the facade out and you're just walking around, there was a guy that talked to us a long time ago. He talked about walking around like eggshells, and you kind of bump into one another. It's like, oh, you might crack that shell if you get too close, or and so we get very protective of ourselves, and we're afraid to engage or to be honest and be truthful and be in the light. Satan loves it when you're here in that realm. Right. Nothing. I told a guy the other day, there's nothing you've either done or said or been involved in that I haven't either heard or done myself. Yeah. So don't lie. Yeah. Just come forthright, be honest. You can't get any help if you're not honest. If you're secretive and just living in the dark, nobody can help you. God can't help you. The Bible's not going to help you if that's where you camp out. Does that make sense? And again, it's just prideful, worldly thinking. How about fear of being hurt? Oh, my goodness. How about abused or maligned or slandered in some way? None of us want to be hurt. But you know what? God allows you to be hurt. My favorite book in all the world is called Exquisite Agony. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. There's 2 titles. The other title is Crucified by Christians. Because we're going to hurt one another. You'll hurt your children. You'll hurt your spouse. You're going to hurt people because we're all selfish and we say bad things. And also, you ever lash out at somebody? Yeah. But somebody says something to you and you're right back at them? Yeah. Come on, bro. It's what I call a fear biter. When I was in the military back in the 60s, I was getting ready to go to Vietnam. And I was in this dog program. We trained German Shepherds. And at any given time, we'd have 500 to 600 shepherds at the school. And they were all trained to kill people. That's what we trained them for. And so there was not a lot of room for error. It was just, this is your job. You're going out to the front and detect the Viet Cong and send out the alert or kill them. We taught them how to attack, how to bite, how to kill. And lives were at stake. But you know what? If you're a fear biter, personally, that is a bad place to be. If you're all defensive and afraid that you can't get help. Is that I'm sorry, I keep saying, does that make sense? And my wife admonished me, don't say that. It also, the dogs would be donated to us. And every day we would get shipments of dogs in a crate, not much bigger than this podium. Not in a mean way, but they were aluminum crates, and they would ship them on the airplanes, and then we'd get them in. And we'd do 2 tests. One would be a gunshot, and if they fear or they cower over the gunshot, you couldn't do anything with them. The other part was when they would come in, I would get them, and I had to put them in different kennels. As soon as I would open the crate, and if the dog was backed into the corner, was snarling and showing his teeth, close the crate, ship him back home. Because you can't train that out of a dog. There wasn't enough time. Now, if you have a little puppy and he's been abused, you might be able to win him over in due time. But with a dog, a German Shepherd we were training to kill, if he was a fear biter, we couldn't use him. We had to just send him back home because he'd been abused. And I think all of us have some form of, maybe your family wasn't the best, or maybe it's in your head, it wasn't the best. I don't know. But if you have that fear of being talked to, discipled, come on, bro, or you stonewall, you're just like, no, you're not getting into my heart. Or you listen, but there's a contemptuous spirit in your heart. Like, yeah, you can talk to me, but I ain't really listening. It leads to distrust and unloving behavior. You got to learn to overcome those things. It will eat you alive, and you will never grow up and change. How about fear of rejection? Baby. It's kind of connected to all the other fears. If we fail, people won't like us. They might not like me. If we don't get the recognition again, you feel rejected, unimportant. Or if you're open about your sin and then somebody's like, you get shunned by your sin. Those fears are just all here. It's all here. Everything starts in the mind. And you give into those emotions, man, it'll take you out. It will take you out. And fear not dealt with in a spiritual way produces cowardly liars like Saul. Explosive, irrational hotheads like me, or like Nabal. Nabal in 1 Samuel 25:30, his name was Fool because he was a hothead. Paralyzed, lazy, sluggards. Proverbs 26:13 says, there's a lion in the street. I don't want to go out of the house. Very crippling, very crippling. It'll eat you up. Or a bragger. You're a bragger. Read 2 Timothy 3:2 sometime. We're going to bring it in for a landing here. I'm not going to go long. Fear of God produces fearless actions transformed by men and women, by transformed men and women. You can be transformed and not give in to all those things I just referenced and live in that realm, that arena, if you're transformed. You can be bold like David and Goliath. Little guy went up against the giant. You think he had some fears? He overcame them. Jesus, he's stopped the crowd. They were pressing against him, crushing him. And he stopped to listen to the bleeding woman. He had a lot of patience. Took some courage, too, because they were trying to run him down. All of them wanted to be healed. They wanted something from him. Or Moses was a very productive guy. Led the Israelites out of Egypt. These are all things you can do. You can do anything you want to do if you don't give in to those fears. Mary, she could have been stoned. With her situation, very humble. Joshua, read Joshua 1, verse 6, that whole passage. He was a courageous guy. You can have the courage to overcome if you want to. All of you can. How about Paul before King Agrippa? It'd be like us trying to convert Trump. How's that working? A lot of people like him. Some people don't like him. But either way, it could be Obama or Bernie's brothers or whatever, band of brothers coming up. When people, we can be intimidated by people. But you can overcome that. That's right. You can. Everybody used to intimidate me. Hardly anybody intimidates me anymore. It's like, what are you going to do to me? Kill me? It's okay. Yeah. My family's from Scotland. And my favorite movie, actually the best movie on the planet of all time, is called Braveheart. Freedom! There's a quote that he said, every man dies, but not every man lives. You live in fear? Are you controlled by these things? You live there? Don't live there, people. What can happen? You could die. I go to heaven. I'm okay with that. But if you're fearful, if you have all those things that we just talked about, then you're really a slave to it's really a slave to selfishness and fears. They cripple you. They're counterproductive. You can't help anybody because you can't help yourself. If that's where you live, it's very hurtful. You're almost a slave to it. The woman at the end of the movie, when he's in jail getting ready to be tortured, offered him medication to kill the pain. And he would say, I don't want it. I want to face it. He's just like, bring it on. Let me have it. He didn't say that. That's what I'm saying. But she begged him, so he faked it. He said, kissed her and they spit it out because he wanted to feel the reality. If you do that, when you face who you are, you can change. If you medicate it, do anything but come face to face with it, you'll never change. And we all have it. We all have fears. Well, I would love to say I was like Mel Gibson in Braveheart, but there's times it comes where it's like, oh, I'm not too sure about this. But it is the call. It's the call. Don't give in to it. It's very crippling. Well, one last scripture here. Joshua 14. Joshua 14. We're coming in here. Joshua 14. I'm going to have my wife come up here right now. Joshua 14, verse 10. Actually, just start in, it is still verse 10. It says, so here I am today, 72 years old. Is that what yours says? 72 and 70, my wife here. So here we are today. It's in our 70s. I'm still as strong today as the days Moses sent me out. I'm just as vigorous to go out to battle now as I was then. Now give me this hill country that the Lord has promised me that day. That's how I want to go out. How about you? Yeah. That's the lesson. Jeannie's going to share communion right now. So if you would give her your attention.
Okay, I have to face a pretty big fear right now. The fear of following Jack's lesson. It was pretty amazing, and I don't think I can measure up to that. But I do want this scripture, Jack, just that one, verse 4.
He delivered me.
In
Psalm, you don't have to turn it, I'll just read it. Psalm 34, verse 4. I sought the Lord, and he answered me. He delivered me from all my fears.
So I wanted to share about overcoming fear because it's relevant to the lesson. And I'm going to talk about what the cross means. And for me, this would sum it up, that God, the Lord, through the cross, delivered me from all my fears. And I have a lot of fears. I've overcome a lot. As a child, I grew up in a home with 8 kids, and it looked like everybody else in the family was fearless. And I thought, I'm the fearful one. I don't know where these people all came from. I'm not related to them. They found me under a different rock. But I was very fearful as a child. And I had a very abusive father. I have shared about it a little bit. But I really legitimately feared death at the hands of my father, or I feared that I would witness him kill one of my siblings. And this was in, a long time ago in the 50s. And we were way out in the country. And I thought, if one of us died, there's 8. People would be like, they don't count the heads when they get on the bus. We'd be gone for a long time before they even knew. So I truly lived with that fear. When I was 17, I left home, and I had a lot of behavioral stuff going on. And I didn't realize until just recently that what I had was PTSD. That I had lived in an environment where I feared death for so many years that I was acting out with weird behaviors because of that, and I didn't realize that. So, I came into the church when I was about 27, I guess, somewhere around there. I don't know. I'm not good with years and dates and stuff, but at that point, I met Jack, and we got married. Help me out, Jack.
1976.
No wonder I don't remember, right? But we got married, and he helped me because he was a very loving and faithful man, even as messed up as we were. But I carried my fears into that relationship. I was afraid of losing him, so I stonewalled, like he said. We had our first argument, and we were driving in the car, and I said, you know what, stop the car. I can get out right now because I was fine before I met you. I'll be fine without you. And he did stop the car, but he grabbed my arm, and he said, we can't have a relationship like this. You can't just walk away from things when they're difficult. But so much of what you do in life is prompted by fear. And so I was fortunate to be involved with a group of women in a support group for a couple of years, and they helped me to learn how to use the scriptures to overcome fear. And it really was the beginning of a transformation of my life. But at this point in my life, I like Jack said, I don't have a lot of fears. I do think about, it's inevitable that we're all going to die. But as you get to a certain age, it's a little more inevitable that you're going to die. And so I do face those fears sometimes, but I'm able to really calm the fears with the scriptures and my trust in God. But what happened as I overcame the physical fears, I began to fear what Jack said, what people thought about me. I became very much a people pleaser and very concerned. And I wasn't honest and open with people when they would do things that hurt me or something happened in a relationship. I wasn't open with them. And that, honestly, that was as crippling as that fear of physical damage. And it took me. I was honestly in the church for about 11 years before I dealt with that person, person who was looking for that acceptance and recognition. And it's still, it floats around there in the back of the head where, the thought comes up like, well, Jack's sharing. I wonder if he's going to mention me. Yeah, I've done a lot for him. Just wanting even that recognition, as silly as that sounds. But I was driven a lot by that. And then I was bitter when I didn't get that. I had to wrestle to overcome that bitterness. But all of that can be overcome through the cross. Whether, whatever the fear is, you name it, you can overcome that through the cross. And I don't know any other way. I think people without Jesus do learn strategies that work, but any strategy that works, I can take that strategy and I can bring it back to the scriptures. That's the only reason it worked. But to have that true transformation that changes you while you're here on this earth and then allows you to spend eternity with God only comes through the cross. And so for me, what the cross means is that I can be delivered. I was delivered. I'm still being delivered from all my fears. And I'm very grateful to God that Jesus was willing to go to the cross so I could live this life.
Let's pray. Father, thank you for the day. Thank you for your word. Thank you for the way it teaches us, trains us. Father, thank you for the cross, that you were willing to send Jesus to die for us,
That's
God,
right.
for the likes of us. Help us to be mindful of who we are today and every day. Father, help us to be really thinking about how our past week was like, Father, before you, and help us to do a better job this week to really sit at the foot of the cross. Right now, just thank you for the bread that represents Jesus' body and the juice that represents his blood. Father, help us to be at the foot of the cross right now. And we love you and pray in his name.